The emergency broadcast cut through the silence of deep space like a blade through flesh. Ambassador Zektar of the Galactic Federation watched the holographic display with mounting dread as the transmission played for the third time that cycle. The message was simple, desperate, and utterly terrifying in its implications. This is High Commander Velthara of the Corvan Defense Fleet. We are under attack by an unknown force. Our worlds are burning. Our fleets are destroyed. We have lost contact with 7-star systems in the Outer Rim. The enemy moves like nothing we have ever seen. They consume everything in their path. We cannot stop them. Anyone who receives this message, please send aid. We are the last bastion holding the line. If we fall, they will spread into the core worlds. Time is running out. The transmission ended with the familiar static of a severed connection. Zektar's forearms trembled as he reached for the communication console. Around him, the bridge of the Federation flagship fell into an uneasy silence. The crew members, representing dozens of species from across the galaxy, exchanged worried glances. They had all heard the stories of the Corvan military might. If the Corvans were calling for help, the situation was beyond desperate. "Sir," came the voice of Communications Officer Plix, her crystalline form shimmering with nervous energy. "We're receiving similar distress calls from the Altarian colonies and the Nexus trade routes. The pattern is the same. Complete system blackouts followed by silence." Zektar nodded grimly. He had been ambassador for over 200 cycles, representing his people in the Federation's efforts to maintain peace across the known galaxy. Never before had he encountered a threat of this magnitude. The Federation had protocols for everything: pirate raids, territorial disputes, even the occasional rogue AI uprising. But this was different. This was systematic annihilation on a scale that challenged their understanding of warfare itself. "What do we know about this enemy?" Zektar asked, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through decades of diplomatic service. Science Officer Mordak, a towering figure with 6 eyes arranged around his bulbous head, consulted his data pad with frantic movements. "Initial reports are fragmented, sir. The attacking force appears to use technology we cannot identify. Their ships move without visible propulsion systems. They show no response to standard communication protocols. Most disturbing of all, they seem to target population centers first, then military installations." The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Every civilized species in the galaxy followed certain unwritten rules of warfare. Military targets came first. Civilians were protected or evacuated. These beings showed no such restraint. They were either completely alien to galactic civilization, or they simply did not care about the concepts of mercy and honor that held the Federation together. "How many worlds have we lost?" Zektar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Confirmed destroyed, 12-star systems. Missing or unresponsive, 37. The rate of expansion suggests they have multiple fleets operating simultaneously across a front that spans nearly a quarter of the Outer Rim territories." Zektar felt his secondary heart skip a beat. In less than 10 rotations, an unknown force had accomplished what the largest wars in galactic history had failed to achieve in centuries. They were not just facing an invasion. They were witnessing the beginning of galactic extinction. "Sir," Plix interrupted, her voice rising with excitement and fear. "I'm picking up a new transmission. It's coming from the restricted sectors." Every being on the bridge turned their attention to the communication station. The restricted sectors were areas of space that the Federation had declared off-limits by unanimous vote nearly 3 centuries ago. These regions contained worlds that had been deemed too dangerous for contact. Some harbored diseases that could wipe out entire species. Others contained remnants of ancient wars that still posed threats to modern vessels. And some contained species that the Federation had decided were better left alone. "Play the transmission," Zektar ordered, his diplomatic training taking over despite the unprecedented nature of the situation. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a figure that immediately caused several crew members to step backward in alarm. The being appeared roughly humanoid, but there was something unsettling about its proportions. It stood upright on 2 legs, with 2 arms, and a head positioned above broad shoulders. Its skin was a pale pink color, marked with what appeared to be scars or weathering. Most disturbing were its eyes, small, focused, and filled with an intelligence that seemed to peer directly through the transmission. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. The being said in perfect galactic standard, though its accent was unlike anything in the linguistic databases. We have been monitoring the distress calls from your Outer Rim territories. We are prepared to offer assistance against the hostile forces threatening your worlds. The bridge fell silent. Humans. The name appeared in the Federation's oldest databases, listed among the species in the restricted sectors. The files contained little information beyond a series of warnings and a recommendation that contact be avoided indefinitely. The reasons for this classification had been lost to bureaucratic shuffling over the centuries, but the restrictions remained in place. How did they learn our language? Mordak whispered, his eyes wide with amazement. The restricted sectors have been sealed for 3 centuries. No communication has been authorized. Zektar studied the human's face, noting the calm confidence in her expression. Despite the chaos consuming the galaxy, this being seemed completely at ease. It was either supremely arrogant or possessed capabilities that the Federation had vastly underestimated. We know you have protocols regarding contact with our species, Captain Chun continued, as if reading their thoughts across the vast distance of space. Under normal circumstances, we would respect those boundaries. However, the threat currently facing your people poses a risk to all sentient life in this galaxy. We cannot stand by and watch while entire civilizations are destroyed. The transmission included tactical data that made Zektar's blood run cold. The humans had detailed information about the attacking force, ship configurations, movement patterns, and attack strategies that the Federation's own intelligence services had been unable to gather. Either the humans possessed surveillance capabilities far beyond anything known to galactic science, or they had already engaged the enemy in combat. We have the capability to assist in the defense of your remaining territories, Captain Chin said, her tone remaining steady and professional. But we will need immediate access to coordinate with your military forces. Every moment of delay costs lives. Zektar faced the most difficult decision of his career. Federation law explicitly prohibited contact with restricted species without a full council vote and extensive preparation. Such a process would take cycles to complete, time they clearly did not have. On the other hand, breaking Federation law could result in his removal from office and potential criminal charges. But if the humans truly possessed the capability to help against this threat, refusing their aid could mean the end of galactic civilization. Sir, Plix said quietly, I'm receiving reports that the enemy has broken through the Corvin defensive line. They're moving toward the core worlds. The decision crystallized in Zektar's mind with sudden clarity. Sometimes a leader had to choose between following the law and doing what was right. History would judge him accordingly. Open a channel to the human vessel, he ordered, ignoring the shocked expressions around the bridge. Captain Chun, this is Ambassador Zektar of the Galactic Federation. We accept your offer of assistance. What do you require from us? The human's expression shifted slightly, showing what might have been relief or satisfaction. We need real-time access to your sensor networks and communication systems. Our fleets are already moving to intercept the hostile forces, but we'll need coordination to avoid friendly fire incidents. Fleets. Mordak echoed, his voice filled with disbelief. How many ships do you have? Captain Chin paused for a moment, as if considering how much information to reveal. Currently deployed for this operation, 47 battle groups comprising approximately 1,500 vessels of various classes. Additional forces are being mobilized from our colony worlds. The numbers struck the bridge crew like a physical blow. The entire Federation fleet consisted of fewer than 300 ships spread across thousands of worlds. The idea that a single species, a species that had been hidden away in the restricted sectors, could field such a massive force challenged everything they understood about galactic civilization. Forgive my skepticism, Zektar said carefully, but our records indicate that your species has been confined to a small number of worlds in the restricted sectors. How is such a fleet possible? Captain Chin's expression hardened slightly, and, for a moment, Zektar glimpsed something dangerous lurking behind those small, focused eyes. Ambassador, your people classified our worlds as restricted 3 centuries ago and forbade any contact with human settlements. During that time, we have not been idle. We have expanded, developed our technology, and prepared for threats exactly like the one currently consuming your outer territories." The implications of her words settled over the bridge like a heavy blanket. While the Federation had maintained its careful balance of power and diplomatic protocol, an entire human civilization had been growing and developing in secret. They had been preparing for war while the Federation had been maintaining peace. "How many worlds do you control?" Zektar asked, though he was beginning to suspect that he might not want to know the answer. 237 colony worlds, 12 major industrial centers, and 43 defensive outposts, Captain Chen replied without hesitation. "Our population currently stands at approximately 60 billion individuals." The bridge crew exchanged looks of amazement and growing concern. The humans had built an interstellar empire larger than most Federation member species, while remaining completely hidden from galactic sensors and surveillance. The level of technological sophistication required for such an achievement was staggering. "Sir," Plix interrupted, her voice tight with urgency. "I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching the Alterian system. Multiple fleets dropping out of warp." Zektar turned his attention to the tactical display, watching as hundreds of new contacts appeared on the galaxy map. The ships were moving with a coordination and precision that spoke of extensive military training and advanced command systems. They approached the threatened worlds and formations that the Federation's own tactical computers identified as optimal for both defense and assault. "Those are our forces," Captain Chen confirmed. "Admiral Morrison is taking command of the Alterian defense. Admiral Rodriguez is moving to reinforce the Nexus trade routes. Our third fleet is positioning to cut off the enemy's advance toward the core worlds." As if to emphasize the point, the tactical display updated with real-time battle data. Human ships engaged the unknown enemy with a ferocity and effectiveness that left the bridge crew speechless. The same force that had destroyed Corvin battle fleets and conquered entire star systems found itself facing opponents who not only matched their aggression, but exceeded it. "How are you achieving such tactical superiority?" Mordak asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his shock. Captain Chen's smile was not entirely pleasant. "Ambassador, your people isolated us because they feared we were too dangerous for galactic civilization. 3 centuries ago, they were probably right. Today, you're about to discover exactly why." Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching the tactical display with the calm focus that had earned her command of humanity's Third Fleet. Around her, the bridge crew worked with the efficient precision that marked all human military operations. They had been in hyperspace for 18 hours, racing toward the Nexus trade routes where the alien invaders had destroyed 3 Federation colonies, and were advancing toward the heavily populated Centauri cluster. "Dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds, announced Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. "All ships reporting ready for combat operations." Elena nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic representation of the battle space ahead. Intelligence reports indicated that the enemy force consisted of at least 40 vessels of unknown design, supported by smaller craft that seemed to serve as both fighters and landing vehicles. The Federation forces that had attempted to engage them had been destroyed so completely that there were no survivors to provide detailed tactical information. "Signal the fleet," Elena ordered. "Weapons free upon contact. Rules of engagement are simple. Anything that shoots at us or moves toward populated worlds is a legitimate target. These things don't seem interested in surrender or negotiation." The bridge shuddered slightly as the Indomitable transitioned back into normal space. Around them, 96 human warships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapons systems that represented 3 centuries of military advancement. The human fleet had been designed around a simple principle: absolute, overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. "Contact," called out sensor operator Chun, her voice sharp with excitement. "Multiple bogies bearing 27 Mark III. Configuration unknown. They're moving to intercept." Elena studied the enemy vessels on the tactical display, noting their organic curves and the complete absence of any recognizable propulsion systems. The ships seemed to flow through space rather than thrust themselves forward, and their formation patterns suggested either hive mind coordination or communication systems faster than anything known to galactic science. "They're beautiful," whispered Chief Science Officer Dr. Martinez, her academic fascination temporarily overriding military protocol. "Look at those hull designs. Nothing wasted, nothing unnecessary. They're like living creatures adapted for space travel." "Beautiful or not, they've murdered millions of people," Elena replied coldly. "Weapon stations, prepare for engagement. Target the largest vessels first. I want to see how they respond to a real fight." The enemy ships accelerated toward the human fleet with surprising speed, their formation shifting from a loose cloud into a structured attack pattern. As they drew closer, it became clear that Federation intelligence had underestimated their size. The largest vessels were nearly 2 kilometers in length, while even the smallest fighters were the size of Federation destroyers. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Park. "It's not using any standard protocol. The signal is coming from all enemy vessels simultaneously." "Put it through," Elena ordered, curious to hear what these beings might have to say. The bridge speakers erupted with a sound that could barely be called communication. It was a mixture of harmonic tones, subsonic pulses, and what sounded like the death screams of 1,000 different species. The human crew members winced and covered their ears, while the ship's computers struggled to process the alien signal. Dr. Martinez worked frantically at her console, running the transmission through every linguistic analysis program in the ship's database. After several minutes, she looked up with a pale face. "Admiral, I can only translate fragments, but the general meaning seems to be a demand for surrender. They're calling us soft meat and promising to consume our worlds quickly." Elena's expression hardened into something that her crew had learned to associate with impending violence. "Send a response on all frequencies. Tell them that humanity doesn't surrender to genocidal maniacs." Before Park could compose a reply, the enemy ships opened fire. Streams of energy that seemed to bend space itself reached across the void toward the human fleet. Several Federation databases had mentioned these weapons, coherent gravitational fields that could tear apart molecular bonds and collapse matter at the subatomic level. "Evasive maneuvers," Elena ordered. "All ships, scatter pattern Delta. Return fire when you have a clear shot." The human fleet exploded into motion, each ship following predetermined courses designed to maximize survivability while maintaining offensive capability. The alien weapons tracked some of the vessels, but the human ships moved with an agility that seemed to surprise their attackers. 3 centuries of warfare against pirates, rogue AI, and occasionally each other had taught humanity to build ships that could survive in the most hostile environments imaginable. "Direct hit on the Vengeful," reported Chun, monitoring the fleet's status. "Hull breach on Deck 7, but they're still in the fight." The Relentless is reporting minor damage to their forward shields. Elena watched with satisfaction as the human fleet returned fire. Particle beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles reached out toward the alien vessels, striking their hulls with devastating effect. The enemy ship's organic-looking armor proved surprisingly resilient, but human weapons had been designed to penetrate any defense through sheer overwhelming force. "Look at that, Dr. Martinez breathed, pointing to the tactical display. "Their hull material is actually regenerating. Those impact craters are healing themselves." The observation explained much about the aliens' success against Federation forces. Most galactic species relied on energy shields and redundant systems for protection. These beings had developed something far more advanced, living ships that could repair battle damage in real time. It was an elegant solution that would have been nearly impossible for traditional Federation weapons to overcome. Unfortunately for the aliens, human weapons were not traditional by any measure. "All ships, switch to thermite rounds," Elena commanded. "Let's see how well they regenerate when they're burning from the inside." The human fleet adjusted their targeting, focusing on precision strikes rather than broad area damage. Thermite-enhanced projectiles penetrated the alien hulls and detonated inside their superstructure, creating chemical fires that burned hot enough to melt most known materials. The regenerating armor found itself trying to heal around flames that consumed the very materials needed for repair. Enemy vessel designation Alpha 1 is showing massive internal fires, Chen reported with evident satisfaction. Hull regeneration has stopped. They're losing atmosphere. The battle continued for another 40 minutes, with both fleets maneuvering for advantage across the vast emptiness of space. The aliens fought with a coordination that spoke of collective intelligence, their ships moving as extensions of a single will. But they had clearly never encountered opponents who fought with the calculated savagery that humans brought to warfare. "Admiral," Park called out, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Morrison's fleet at Alteria." Elena divided her attention between the ongoing battle and the incoming message. Morrison's weather-beaten face appeared on a secondary display, his usual calm demeanor strained by whatever he had encountered. "Rodriguez, we've engaged the main enemy force," Morrison reported without preamble. 47 hostile vessels, including 3 of those kilometer-long command ships. "We've eliminated 31 of them. But we've discovered something you need to know." Elena waited while the Indomitable shook under enemy fire, her weapons crews concentrating their attack on a damaged alien cruiser that was attempting to withdraw from the battle. "These things aren't just random raiders," Morrison continued. "They're scouts. My intelligence team intercepted their communications during the battle. There's a main force following behind them. Rodriguez, we're looking at more than 10,000 ships moving toward Federation space." The news hit Elena like a physical blow, but her expression remained steady for the benefit of her crew. 10,000 ships would represent the largest military force in recorded galactic history. Even if the human fleet could maintain its current level of success, they would be vastly outnumbered by an enemy that seemed to view entire civilizations as nothing more than food sources. "How long do we have?" Elena asked. "Best estimate is 36 hours before the main force reaches the Outer Rim colonies," Morrison replied. "After that, they'll be in position to strike at the core worlds within a week. We need to consolidate our forces and prepare for a defensive campaign." Elena nodded, though she was already formulating alternative strategies. Defensive campaigns were for species that couldn't take the fight to their enemies. Humanity had not spent 3 centuries building the galaxy's most powerful military force in order to cower behind defensive lines. "Understood, Admiral. We'll complete operations here and rendezvous with your force." Rodriguez out. The transmission ended just as the human fleet delivered a coordinated strike that eliminated the last functional alien vessel. The battle had lasted less than an hour, and humanity had achieved a complete victory with minimal casualties. But Elena took no satisfaction from the victory. She was already thinking about the larger war to come. "All ships, secure from battle stations," she ordered. "Damage control teams to report status within 30 minutes. Dr. Martinez, I want a complete analysis of the alien technology. Anything we can learn about their capabilities might save lives in the battles ahead." As the human fleet began recovery operations, Elena retreated to her ready room to study the tactical data from both battles. The enemy fought with coordination and technology that surpassed most Federation member species, but they showed certain predictable patterns. They relied heavily on their superior regeneration and gravitational weapons, and they seemed to expect their opponents to be intimidated by their organic ship designs. More importantly, they appeared to have no experience fighting opponents who matched or exceeded their own technological capabilities. The aliens had grown accustomed to overwhelming less advanced civilizations through sheer superiority. When faced with humans who fought with equal sophistication and greater aggression, they had struggled to adapt their tactics. Elena pulled up the strategic map of the galaxy, noting the locations of human colonies, Federation worlds, and the projected path of the incoming alien fleet. Traditional military wisdom would suggest establishing defensive positions at key strategic points and attempting to bleed the enemy through attrition. But Elena was not thinking traditionally. She opened a secure communication channel to Admiral Chun at Fleet Command, knowing that the conversation she was about to have would determine the fate of billions of lives across the galaxy. "Admiral Chun, this is Rodriguez. I'm transmitting tactical data from our engagement. We've confirmed that individual enemy vessels are vulnerable to focused attack, but Morrison's intelligence indicates we're facing a force of more than 10,000 ships." Chen's image appeared on Elena's personal display, her expression grim as she reviewed the transmitted data. Admiral Chun had commanded human forces through the Proxima Rebellion and the Titan War, earning a reputation for strategic thinking that bordered on the supernatural. I've been reviewing similar data from the other engagement zones, Chun replied after several minutes. Our forces are achieving tactical victories, but the strategic situation is becoming untenable. We're facing an enemy that can replace losses faster than we can inflict them. Elena had expected as much. Despite humanity's technological advantages, they were still outnumbered by a factor that made traditional warfare impossible. But she had been thinking about the problem from a different angle. Admiral, what if we're approaching this wrong? What if instead of trying to stop 10,000 ships, we focus on eliminating their ability to coordinate and command those ships? Chin's eyes narrowed with interest. Explain. Every engagement has shown the same pattern. These things move with perfect coordination, as if they're controlled by a central intelligence. That's their greatest strength, but it's also a potential weakness. If we can identify and eliminate the command structure, the entire fleet might become vulnerable. Elena transmitted her preliminary analysis, showing the communication patterns and coordination behaviors observed during the battles. The data suggested that the alien fleet operated through a hierarchical system, with command vessels directing the actions of subordinate ships through some form of instantaneous communication. It's a high-risk strategy, Chen acknowledged after reviewing Elena's proposal. We would need to penetrate deep into enemy-controlled territory and locate their command vessels. Even if we succeed, there's no guarantee that destroying the leadership would disable the entire fleet. Elena nodded, fully aware of the risks involved. But if we continue fighting defensively, we're going to lose. They have too many ships and too many resources. Our only chance is to strike at the heart of their operation before they can bring their full force to bear. The two admirals sat in silence for several moments, considering the implications of the proposed operation. It would require committing the majority of humanity's fleet to a single desperate gamble, leaving the colonies vulnerable if the mission failed. But if it succeeded, it might end the war before the aliens could destroy the galaxy's remaining civilizations. I'll need to coordinate with the other fleet commanders, Chen said finally. But I think you're right. We can't win a war of attrition against this enemy. Prepare your fleet for deep strike operations. If we're going to do this, we need to move fast. Captain Marcus Webb crouched behind the twisted remains of what had once been a Federation defense tower, his assault rifle trained on the alien creatures moving through the ruins of New Geneva Colony. The human Special Forces team had been on the planet for 6 hours, gathering intelligence on the enemy occupation forces while avoiding the systematic extermination that was consuming the colony's population. Through his tactical visor, Marcus watched the aliens work with methodical efficiency. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with elongated limbs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their skin appeared to be a living metal that shifted between dark gray and deep purple, and their faces contained multiple sensory organs arranged around a central mouth filled with what looked like industrial cutting tools rather than teeth. "How many civilians are left?" whispered Sergeant Lisa Park, the team's communications specialist, her voice barely audible through the throat microphone. Marcus consulted his tactical display, which showed the heat signatures of surviving humans scattered throughout the colony. The number was depressingly small, maybe 300 out of 12,000. They're being herded toward the central processing facility. The facility had been the colony's main administrative building before the aliens arrived. Now it served a far more sinister purpose. The Special Forces team had observed the aliens driving groups of humans into the building, but none had emerged. The purpose was clear, even if the specific methods remained unknown. "We need to get closer," said Corporal James Chun, the team's explosives expert. "Command wants detailed intelligence on their technology and capabilities. Everything we can learn might help the fleet." Marcus nodded, though the idea of approaching the processing facility filled him with dread. The team's mission was reconnaissance, not rescue. But watching the systematic destruction of an entire colony tested the limits of professional detachment. He had fought in border conflicts and pirate raids, but nothing had prepared him for witnessing genocide on this scale. The team moved carefully through the ruins, using their advanced camouflage systems to avoid detection by the alien patrol groups. Human stealth technology had advanced considerably during the centuries of isolation. incorporating adaptive materials that could mimic surrounding environments and dampeners that masked heat signatures and electromagnetic emissions. As they approached the processing facility, the true scope of the alien operation became apparent. The beings had constructed massive organic machines around the original building, creating a complex that pulsed with its own internal rhythm. Tubes and conduits connected the various sections, carrying fluids that glowed with an unsettling phosphorescent light. Jesus Christ, breathed Private Rodriguez, the team's youngest member. They're not just killing people. They're processing them. Marcus had to agree with the assessment. The facility looked more like a biological factory than a simple execution site. The aliens were harvesting something from their victims, though the exact nature of the process remained unclear. The discovery added a new level of horror to an already nightmarish situation. "Command, this is Recon 7. Marcus spoke quietly into his throat microphone. "We've reached the target area. The aliens have constructed some kind of biological processing facility. Uploading tactical data now." The response came through his earpiece with unusual clarity, despite the distance to the human fleet. "Recon 7, this is Fleet Intelligence. We're receiving your transmission. Continue observation and gather samples of alien technology if possible. Admiral Chen needs complete tactical data within 12 hours. Marcus acknowledged the order while studying the facility's defenses. The aliens had positioned sentries around the perimeter, but their attention seemed focused outward rather than on protecting the processing equipment. They appeared confident that no significant threat could reach them on the occupied world. "Park, can you tap into their communication network?" Marcus asked. The sergeant consulted her portable intelligence gathering equipment, running passive scans of the alien electronic signatures. "They're not using standard electromagnetic communications. It looks like some kind of bioelectric field transmission. I can detect the signals, but I can't decode them." The limitation was frustrating but not unexpected. Human intelligence services had been preparing for first contact with unknown species for decades, but the aliens used technology so far outside galactic norms that standard analysis techniques proved inadequate. Everything about them suggested evolutionary development along completely different lines from any known species. "Movement on the east perimeter," Chen reported, indicating a group of aliens approaching the facility with another collection of human prisoners. "Looks like about 20 civilians. They're all wearing Federation mining uniforms." Marcus watched through his scope as the aliens herded the miners toward the facility entrance. The humans moved with the mechanical compliance of people who had accepted their fate, their faces blank with despair and exhaustion. Some appeared injured, while others showed signs of prolonged exposure to the alien environment. "We have to do something," Rodriguez said, his voice tight with emotion. "We can't just watch this happen. Our orders are reconnaissance only," Marcus replied, though he shared the private's frustration. "Engaging the enemy would compromise the mission and alert them to our presence. The intelligence we gather here might save millions of lives." The rationalization sounded hollow even to Marcus himself. Military training emphasized the importance of mission objectives over individual humanitarian concerns, but watching helpless civilians being led to their deaths challenged every instinct that had driven him to join the special forces. He had become a soldier to protect people, not to observe their destruction from a safe distance. The team spent the next 4 hours documenting the alien operations, recording everything from individual creature behavior to the apparent command structure within the facility. The data they collected painted a disturbing picture of an enemy that viewed sentient life as nothing more than raw material for their biological machines. "I'm detecting some kind of central control node," Park reported, pointing to a massive organic structure at the facility's center. The communication signals all seemed to originate from that location. It might be their local command center. Marcus studied the structure through his tactical visor, noting the heavy concentration of guards and the obvious importance of the location within the facility's design. If the team could gather intelligence from the control node, it might provide crucial insights into the alien command hierarchy and decision-making processes. "Too heavily defended for a direct approach," Chen observed, running tactical calculations on his portable computer. "But I might be able to get close enough to plant listening devices. Give me 30 minutes to study their patrol patterns." While Chun worked on infiltration options, Marcus received an urgent communication from Fleet Command. The transmission came through encrypted burst transmission, indicating high-priority intelligence updates. All reconnaissance teams, this is Admiral Chun. The alien main fleet has been located moving through the Vega sector. Intelligence estimates indicate more than 12,000 vessels advancing toward Federation core worlds. We are implementing Operation Sword Strike within 18 hours. All teams are to gather maximum intelligence on command and control systems immediately. Marcus felt his stomach tighten at the implications. Operation Sword Strike was humanity's desperate gamble to eliminate the alien command structure before their main fleet could reach populated worlds. The success of the operation depended entirely on the intelligence gathered by teams like his own. Chun, change of plans, Marcus said. We need that control node intelligence now. Whatever the risk, we have to try. The explosives expert nodded grimly, checking his equipment and preparing for what would likely be a one-way mission. I'll need a distraction to draw the guards away from the central area. Something big enough to get their attention, but not so obvious that they realize we're here. Marcus considered the options while watching the alien operations continue around them. The facility processed humans with mechanical efficiency, feeding the organic machines that pulsed with their own internal life. The sight strengthened his resolve to gather the intelligence needed for Operation Sword Strike to succeed. Rodriguez, you're our best marksman, Marcus said. Can you eliminate the perimeter guards on the south side without alerting the central facility? The young private nodded, though his face showed the strain of the situation. Silenced rifle at this range should work. But once I start shooting, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before they realize something's wrong. That should be enough, Chin said, finalizing his infiltration plan. I can reach the control node, plant the surveillance gear, and extract to the rally point. But once I'm inside, you'll need to provide covering fire if things go wrong. Marcus weighed the risks against the potential intelligence value. The mission had always been dangerous, but the changing strategic situation made the risk acceptable. If they failed to gather the needed intelligence, Operation Sword Strike might fail, and the alien main fleet would be free to destroy every populated world in the galaxy. We do this by the numbers, Marcus decided. Rodriguez takes out the south perimeter guards at exactly 2,100 hours. Chin moves to the control node while Park and I provide overwatch. If the situation goes bad, we fight our way to the extraction point and call for immediate pickup. The team spent the remaining daylight hours preparing for the mission, checking equipment, and studying the facility's layout through their surveillance systems. The alien operations continued without pause, processing human civilians with the same mechanical efficiency that marked all their activities. The site served as a constant reminder of what was at stake. As the sun set over the ruins of New Geneva Colony, Marcus watched the alien facility transition to its nighttime routine. The creatures showed no apparent need for rest, but their activity patterns shifted slightly as darkness fell. It was a small advantage, but human special forces had been trained to exploit any weakness they could find. All stations, this is Recon 7, Marcus whispered into his throat microphone. Beginning final phase of intelligence gathering. If we don't check in within 2 hours, consider the mission compromised and proceed with fleet operations. The acknowledgement from Fleet Command carried an undertone of finality that made Marcus realize how much was riding on the next few hours. The intelligence they gathered would determine whether Operation Sword Strike had any chance of success. If they failed, humanity's desperate gamble would be launched blind against an enemy they still didn't fully understand. Rodriguez, begin your approach to the firing position, Marcus ordered. Chun, prepare for infiltration. Park, monitor all communication frequencies and watch for signs that we've been detected. The team moved into their final positions with the practiced coordination that came from years of training and combat experience. Each member understood their role in the mission, and each accepted the risks involved. They were professional soldiers facing an enemy that represented the ultimate threat to everything they had sworn to protect. As Rodriguez settled into his sniper position, and Chun prepared for his dangerous approach to the alien control node, Marcus found himself thinking about the broader war raging across the galaxy. Human fleets were fighting desperate battles against an enemy that seemed unstoppable, while billions of civilians depended on their success. The weight of responsibility was almost overwhelming, but it also provided clarity of purpose. In less than an hour, they would discover whether humanity could gather the intelligence needed to strike at the heart of the alien command structure. The fate of galactic civilization might well depend on what they learned in the next few hours. Admiral Chen stood in the war room of the flagship Prometheus, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the positions of over 1,500 human vessels preparing for the most audacious military operation in galactic history. Operation Sword Strike would send the entire human fleet deep into alien-controlled territory, gambling everything on a single decisive blow against the enemy command structure. Intelligence reports from the reconnaissance teams are confirming our tactical assessments, reported Colonel Martinez, the operations chief intelligence officer. The alien forces operate through a strict hierarchical command system, with control nodes on major vessels directing the actions of subordinate ships. If we can eliminate the primary command vessels, their coordination should collapse. Chen studied the tactical data with the focused intensity that had made her one of humanity's most successful military commanders. The reconnaissance teams had paid a heavy price for their intelligence. Only 3 of the 12 teams deployed had survived their missions. But their sacrifice had provided crucial insights into alien operations and vulnerabilities. What about their main fleet? Asked Admiral Rodriguez, whose third fleet had achieved spectacular victories in the Outer Rim battles. Latest intelligence puts them at over 12,000 vessels. Even if we succeed in disrupting their command structure, we'll still be facing overwhelming numerical superiority. The concern was valid. Human forces had consistently demonstrated tactical superiority over individual alien vessels, but the enemy's numerical advantage was staggering. Traditional military doctrine suggested that no force should engage an enemy with greater than 3-to-1 numerical superiority. Operation Sword Strike proposed attacking an enemy that outnumbered them 8-to-1. The key is not defeating their entire fleet, Chen explained, manipulating the holographic display to show the projected alien formation. Our objective is to identify and eliminate their command hierarchy quickly enough to cause system-wide coordination failure. If we can create confusion and break their unified command structure, their numerical advantage becomes a liability rather than an asset. Admiral Morrison, veteran of the Altarian defense, leaned forward to study the tactical projections. The reconnaissance data suggests they have 3 primary command vessels, massive ships over 5 kilometers in length that seem to coordinate different sectors of their fleet. But they're positioned in the center of their formation, protected by thousands of escort vessels. Chen nodded, acknowledging the challenge. Which is why we're not going to fight through their escorts. We're going to bypass them entirely. She activated a new section of the holographic display, showing a complex maneuver that would take the human fleet through dimensions that most galactic species couldn't even detect. Human scientists had developed trans-dimensional drive technology during the centuries of isolation, allowing their ships to briefly phase through parallel spatial layers to avoid obstacles. Transdimensional insertion, Rodriguez breathed, immediately understanding the implications. We phase the entire fleet through normal space, emerge inside their formation, eliminate the command vessels, and phase out before their escorts can respond. The timing will be critical, Chen acknowledged. We'll have perhaps 10 minutes in normal space before their defensive systems can target our ships effectively. 10 minutes to locate and destroy 3 command vessels in the middle of the largest fleet in galactic history. The assembled fleet commanders studied the plan with a mixture of admiration and concern. Transdimensional operations were extremely dangerous, requiring precise coordination and perfect timing. A single miscalculation could scatter the human fleet across multiple dimensional layers, stranding individual ships in space that might not even exist in their home reality. What about Federation support? Asked Admiral Park, commander of the Second Fleet. Ambassador Zektar has been coordinating with Federation member species. Some of them might be willing to provide assistance. Chen displayed the current status of Federation forces, showing the scattered remnants of various member species' fleets. The alien advance had been so rapid and devastating that most Federation military units had been destroyed or forced to retreat to defensive positions around their home worlds. The Federation can provide approximately 300 vessels of various classes, Chun reported. They'll serve as a diversionary force, engaging the alien fleet's outer perimeter while we execute the main operation. Their sacrifice will buy us the time needed to reach the command vessels. The word sacrifice hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone in the room understood that the Federation forces would be facing impossible odds, serving essentially as bait to draw alien attention away from the human fleet's real objective. It was a harsh calculus, but the alternative was the complete destruction of galactic civilization. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Blake. I'm receiving an urgent transmission from Captain Webb's reconnaissance team on New Geneva. Chun activated the communication channel, and Captain Webb's voice filled the war room. The Special Forces officer sounded exhausted, but determined, speaking from somewhere inside alien-controlled territory. Command, this is Recon 7. We've successfully infiltrated the alien processing facility and gathered detailed intelligence on their command structure. The data we're transmitting shows that their command hierarchy is more complex than we initially assessed. Chun watched as tactical data flooded the holographic displays, showing the internal structure and operations of the alien facility. The information painted a disturbing picture of an enemy that was far more sophisticated than their initial assessments had suggested. The aliens don't just use hierarchical command, Webb continued. They operate through some kind of collective consciousness network. Individual vessels maintain local autonomy, but strategic decisions are made by a group intelligence that links all command vessels together. The revelation forced Chun to reconsider the entire operational plan. If the alien commanders were linked through a collective consciousness, eliminating individual command vessels might not create the coordination breakdown they were counting on. The enemy might be able to adapt to losses much faster than human planners had anticipated. What's the nature of this collective network? Chen asked, hoping that Webb's team had discovered exploitable weaknesses. We managed to tap into their communication system briefly, Webb replied. Dr. Park analyzed the data and believes the network, if we can disrupt the biological components, the entire communication system should collapse. The intelligence transformed Operation Sword Strike from a desperate gamble into a surgical strike with clearly defined objectives. Instead of trying to destroy massive command vessels, the human fleet would need to eliminate the biological components that maintain the alien collective consciousness. Webb, can your team identify the specific locations of these biological network nodes? We're transmitting detailed scans now, Admiral. The nodes appear to be located in the central sections of the command vessels, protected by heavy organic armor and defensive systems. But there's something else you need to know. Chen waited while additional data appeared on the tactical displays, showing the internal layout of the alien command vessels. The structures were even more complex than their external appearance suggested, with multiple levels of organic systems that seemed to serve both technological and biological functions. The network isn't limited to just the command vessels, Webb continued. The reconnaissance data shows connection points on every alien ship in their fleet. The command vessels serve as central processors, but the entire fleet is linked through the biological network. The discovery presented both an opportunity and a challenge. If the human fleet could disrupt the biological network effectively, it might disable the entire alien force simultaneously. But it also meant that their enemies were more unified and coordinated than anyone had realized. Admiral, Colonel Martinez said, reviewing the incoming intelligence data, if Captain Webb's assessment is correct, we're not facing individual ships commanded by separate leaders. We're fighting a single organism that happens to be distributed across thousands of vessels. Chen nodded grimly, understanding the implications. Which means that partial success won't be enough. We have to eliminate the entire network simultaneously, or the surviving components will adapt and compensate for our attack. She called up the revised tactical plan, incorporating the new intelligence into Operation Sword Strike's objectives. Instead of targeting specific command vessels, the human fleet would need to attack biological network nodes across the entire alien formation. It would require even more precise timing and coordination than the original plan. All fleet commanders, we're modifying our operational parameters, Chen announced. Based on the latest intelligence, our target is not individual command vessels, but the biological network that coordinates their entire fleet. We'll need to strike at hundreds of targets simultaneously to achieve complete network disruption. Admiral Rodriguez studied the updated plan with obvious concern. Admiral, the coordination requirements are beyond anything we've ever attempted. We're talking about precisely timed attacks across a battle space that spans several light minutes. I know the risks, Chen replied, but we've run out of alternatives. The alien main fleet will reach the Federation core worlds within 36 hours. If we don't stop them now, there won't be another chance. She opened a fleet-wide communication channel, addressing the crews of 1,500 human warships that represented the accumulated military might of their civilization. The men and women listening to her broadcast were the descendants of Earth's warriors, shaped by centuries of conflict and technological development into the most effective fighting force the galaxy had ever seen. Attention all vessels, this is Admiral Chun. In 18 hours, we will execute Operation Sword Strike, the most critical military operation in human history. Our objective is to eliminate the command network of an alien force that threatens all sentient life in this galaxy. The odds against us are severe, but we have advantages that our enemies cannot comprehend. She paused, knowing that her next words would be recorded by history as either the prelude to humanity's greatest victory or the final communication of their civilization. 3 centuries ago, the galaxy decided that humanity was too dangerous for civilized contact. They feared our capacity for violence, our willingness to embrace conflict, and our refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. Today, those same qualities will determine whether galactic civilization survives or falls into darkness. Chun closed the communication channel and turned back to her senior commanders. We have 18 hours to complete final preparations. I want every system checked, every weapon loaded, and every crew member ready for the fight of their lives. When we emerge from transdimensional space tomorrow, we'll be facing an enemy that has conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations. They're about to discover why the galaxy was right to fear us. The war room fell silent as the assembled officers contemplated the magnitude of their task. In less than a day, they would either save galactic civilization or die in the attempt. There would be no middle ground, no partial victories, and no second chances. Operation Sword Strike would determine the fate of billions of lives across thousands of worlds. As the meeting dispersed and the fleet commanders returned to their ships, Chen remained in the war room, studying the tactical displays and considering every possible contingency. The weight of command had never felt heavier, but she drew strength from the knowledge that humanity had never backed down from a challenge, no matter how overwhelming the odds might seem. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn whether their ancient fears about human nature had been justified. The bridge of the Prometheus hummed with tension as Admiral Chun watched the final preparations for Operation Sword Strike. Around her, the command crew worked with the focused precision that came from months of preparation and the knowledge that failure meant the extinction of galactic civilization. The holographic displays showed the positions of 1,500 human vessels, all synchronized for the most ambitious military operation in recorded history. Transdimensional drive systems showing green across all ships, reported Navigation Officer Commander Blake. Fleet formation is locked and ready for phase transition. Chen nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the alien fleet's position. Intelligence updates from the reconnaissance teams had painted a terrifying picture of the enemy force, over 12,000 vessels arranged in a formation that spanned several star systems. At the center of this massive armada, the biological command network that coordinated their operations pulsed with alien intelligence. Federation diversionary forces are in position, announced Communications Officer Lieutenant Park. Ambassador Zektar reports that they're ready to begin their attack on schedule. The Federation fleet consisted of 300 ships from dozens of member species, representing the largest multinational force ever assembled. They would attack the alien fleet's perimeter, drawing attention away from the human fleet's real objective. Most of those brave crews would not survive the encounter, but their sacrifice might save billions of lives. Time to phase transition, 30 seconds, Blake announced. Chen opened a fleet-wide channel, knowing that these might be the last words she ever spoke to her people. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We are humanity. We are the children of warriors who conquered their own world and reached for the stars. Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every species that dreams of freedom from tyranny. Show them why the galaxy feared us. The bridge lights dimmed as the transdimensional drives engaged, pulling the entire human fleet into a layer of space that existed parallel to normal reality. Around them, the stars faded into impossible colors, and the laws of physics bent in ways that challenged human comprehension. For 15 minutes, they would travel through dimensions that most species couldn't even perceive. Phase transition complete, Blake reported. All ships reporting successful dimensional shift. We are now traveling through transdimensional space toward the target coordinates. Chen used the travel time to review the final intelligence reports. Captain Webb's team had identified the exact locations of the biological network nodes within the alien command structure. The targets were heavily defended and deeply buried within the enemy vessels, but human weapons had been specifically modified for this mission. Quantum resonance warheads would disrupt the bioelectric fields that maintain the alien collective consciousness. Admiral, called out sensor operator Martinez, I'm detecting massive energy signatures ahead. The alien fleet is even larger than our estimates suggested. I'm counting over 15,000 vessels in the immediate battle zone. The number struck the bridge crew like a physical blow. Their intelligence had proven conservative. The enemy force was 25% larger than anticipated. Even with the element of surprise, the human fleet would be outnumbered 10-1 in the battle to come. Adjust targeting priorities, Chen ordered without hesitation. Focus all fire on the primary network nodes. Secondary targets are expendable if we can eliminate the command structure. Dropping out of transdimensional space in 60 seconds, Blake announced. All ships report ready for combat operations. Chen watched the countdown timer with the calm focus that had carried her through decades of military service. In 1 minute, they would emerge inside the largest enemy fleet in galactic history, with only surprise and superior firepower to protect them. The next 10 minutes would determine whether Operation Sword Strike succeeded or failed catastrophically. Transition in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 mark. The Prometheus burst back into normal space in the exact center of the alien fleet formation. Around them, 1,500 human warships materialized with perfect precision, their weapons already locked onto designated targets. The alien vessels hung in space like organic sculptures, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with the rhythms of the collective consciousness that controlled them. Multiple contacts, all vectors, Martinez shouted. Enemy vessels are responding to our presence. They're trying to bring weapons to bear. All ships, execute firing plan Alpha, Chen commanded. Primary targets are the biological network nodes. Secondary targets are command vessels. Commence firing. The human fleet erupted with coordinated violence that lit up the darkness of space. Quantum resonance warheads streaked toward their targets, designed to disrupt the bioelectric fields that maintained alien coordination. Plasma torpedoes and particle beams followed, targeting the organic hulls that protected the enemy command systems. The alien response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of vessels turned their weapons toward the human fleet, filling space with gravitational fields and energy beams that could tear apart molecular bonds. But the aliens had been caught completely off guard by the sudden appearance of an enemy fleet in their most protected formation. Direct hit on network node Alpha 7, reported weapons officer Chen. Resonance warhead detonated inside the target vessel. I'm reading massive bioelectric disruption. Across the battle space, human weapons found their targets with devastating accuracy. The reconnaissance team's intelligence proved invaluable as precisely aimed strikes disrupted the biological networks that coordinated alien operations. Ship after ship reported successful attacks on the nodes that maintained the collective consciousness. Admiral, look at this, Martinez called out, pointing to the tactical display. The alien formations are starting to break down. Individual ships are losing coordination. Chen watched with growing satisfaction as the enemy fleet's perfect coordination began to deteriorate. ships that had moved with hive-mind precision suddenly found themselves operating independently, their connection to the collective consciousness severed by human weapons. The unified alien armada was becoming a confused collection of individual vessels. Federation forces are beginning their diversionary attack, Park reported. Ambassador Zektar's fleet is engaging the enemy perimeter. The Federation assault drew additional alien attention away from the human fleet, but Chen knew that the brave crews attacking the perimeter faced impossible odds. The diversionary attack was designed to buy time rather than achieve victory, time that the human fleet desperately needed to complete their mission. Network Node Beta 3 is down, Weapons Officer Chen announced. Beta 5 showing massive damage. I think we're actually disrupting their command system. The battle continued for 8 more minutes, with human ships systematically eliminating the biological nodes that maintained alien coordination. The enemy fought back with desperate ferocity, but their responses became increasingly uncoordinated as more network components were destroyed. Admiral, we're taking heavy damage, reported Damage Control Officer Torres. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. The Relentless and Vengeance are reporting critical damage to their main drive systems. Chen acknowledged the reports while maintaining her focus on the primary mission. Human casualties were mounting, but the operation was succeeding beyond their most optimistic projections. The alien collective consciousness was collapsing under the systematic destruction of its biological infrastructure. Final network node eliminated, Chen announced with quiet satisfaction. All primary targets destroyed. The alien command structure is down. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the vast alien fleet, ships suddenly stopped their coordinated maneuvers and began drifting aimlessly through space. The collective consciousness that had unified their actions was gone, leaving thousands of individual vessels without central guidance or coordination. My God, Martinez whispered, watching the tactical display. They're completely disorganized. Ships are colliding with each other. Some of them are just floating dead in space. Chen opened the fleet communication channel, addressing the human crews who had just achieved the impossible. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Primary mission objectives have been accomplished. The alien command network has been eliminated. Prepare for extraction to transdimensional space. As the human fleet began its withdrawal, Chen received a communication from Ambassador Zektar aboard the Federation Diversionary Force. The Galactic Federation's senior diplomat appeared on the main display, his expression showing amazement and profound relief. Admiral Chen, this is Ambassador Zektar. Our sensors are detecting massive disruption in the alien fleet formation. What has happened? We have successfully eliminated their command structure, Chen replied. The collective consciousness that coordinated their operations has been destroyed. The individual ships still pose a threat, but they can no longer operate as a unified force. The ambassadors for arms gestured with excitement and disbelief. Admiral, you have achieved something that seemed impossible. The alien fleet is breaking apart. Ships are fleeing in all directions. The immediate threat to the galaxy has been eliminated. Chun felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't realized she was carrying. Operation Sword Strike had succeeded, but the cost had been significant. 23 human ships had been destroyed, and many others carried battle damage that would take months to repair. The Federation Diversionary Force had suffered even heavier casualties, with over half their vessels lost in the desperate attack on the alien perimeter. Phase transition in 30 seconds, Blake announced. All ships prepare for return to transdimensional space. As the human fleet prepared to withdraw, Chen took one last look at the tactical display showing the scattered remains of the once mighty alien armada. Individual ships continued to drift through space, their crews apparently unable to function without the collective consciousness that had guided them. Some vessels were already powering down their systems, while others moved aimlessly without apparent destination or purpose. Admiral, Martinez called out, I'm detecting something unusual. Several alien vessels are transmitting what appears to be surrender signals. The discovery added a new dimension to the victory. The aliens were not just defeated. They were apparently capable of surrender when separated from their collective consciousness. It suggested that individual members of their species might be capable of peaceful coexistence, despite the genocidal behavior they had shown under collective control. Note the coordinates of those vessels, Chen ordered. We'll need to investigate their intentions once we've secured the immediate battle zone. The human fleet completed its transition back to transdimensional space, leaving behind a battlefield that would be remembered as the turning point in the war for galactic survival. Operation Sword Strike had achieved total success, eliminating the threat of alien conquest, while demonstrating humanity's capability to protect civilized worlds from those who would destroy them. As the fleet began its journey back to Federation space, Chen reflected on the broader implications of their victory. Humanity had emerged from 3 centuries of isolation to save a galaxy that had feared their potential for violence. The irony was not lost on her. The same qualities that had made humans too dangerous for galactic society had proven essential for galactic survival. Communications from Fleet Command, Park announced. They're requesting a full after-action report and casualty assessment. Chen nodded, knowing that the reports would mark the end of her greatest military challenge and the beginning of a new chapter in human galactic relations. The war was over, but the peace would bring its own complexities. Humanity had proven their worth as protectors of civilization, but they had also demonstrated capabilities that would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The children of Earth were no longer hidden away in restricted space. They had taken their place among the stars as the guardians of freedom, and the galaxy would never be the same.